The Alpha program is an experiential, learner-centered alternative in the public middle school of Shelburne, Vermont. 50 students in grades 6 through 8, 2 full-time teachers, and 1 or 2 aides make up this unique learning community. The enthusiasm of students, parents, and educators alike has made the Alpha program a success since it was established in 1972. This approach addresses the developmental needs of young adolescents and provides an environment in which they thrive, academically, emotionally, and in their relationships with both peers and adults. Today, as educators attempt to redesign schools to meet the social and economic challenges of a changing world, the Alpha approach offers an exemplary model that enables students to become inquisitive, purposeful, lifelong learners.
Today, there's so much information in the world, and it can't all be taught to one person. But that's the way that education is still approaching the subject, is that they're trying to just cram all these facts in your head, and there's so many more facts than your head can hold. And so if you know how to go about finding the information that you need on your own, that's really what you need to do. The students in Alpha in the school all have had that background. They've all had background working with other people. They've all scheduled their own academic goals and plans for themselves. So they really have a head start in becoming leaders. The way Alpha teaches you, they teach you to find resources, to find information on your own, and to look for that, and to be able to go out and seek things in the world on your own, which is really great.
The Alpha philosophy offers a significant alternative to the content-driven reforms mandated in recent years, such as standardized curricula and increased testing. The middle grades are an important time of transition. Students are developing lifelong learning skills and behaviors. We emphasize the development of self-respect and self-discipline. Students develop the essential skills to organize, plan, manage, and evaluate their learning. At this level, these skills, along with creative problem-solving and group process skills, are more essential than any specific content.
My expectations of them in general is that I'm less concerned about the specifics of what they've mastered by the time they finished 8th grade, but that they've really established a firm foundation as lifelong learners. It's more important to me that they go into high school feeling excited about learning and curious, and having the organizational skills and the self-discipline, self-motivation, so that they can get the most out of high school and college and whatever else they choose to do. It's important to me that they have the ability to go out and have the confidence that they can learn what they need to learn when they need to, and make changes and be flexible and open-minded.
It gives you the tools to use to learn, which is what's important in that age. I would, if you wanted to carry it one step further, I mean, it's the university setting on a 5th and 6th grade level.
I think we're learning just as much, just kind of in a different way and different things. See, like a quote from something is, you forget most of the stuff you learn, so it's better to instead of get educated, is to get educable.
The Alpha approach is guided by several key principles. Chief among them is the concept of student-directed learning.
The children own pretty much everything. They own their time, they own the content of the material, they own their skill development, they own their homework, they own their assessments, they assess themselves.
Having looked at a lot of schools, both around here and throughout the United States, I think Alpha really is unique. I certainly don't know of another public school program for middle school kids that's anything like that in terms of the degree to which it's student-centered. In addition to that, I don't know of many private school programs for any age that are that student-centered. So I think it really is outstanding in the way that it carries through on its philosophy.
The content and curriculum that I use in my classroom is very open and very free for the choosing. This year we took that pretty much to the limit and planned our curriculum completely with the students. So we started the first month of school with no plans as teachers as to what unit or topic of study we might work on this year, and spent 4 weeks developing that with children, and based on the questions that they had about themselves and questions that they had about the world, and put them together over many, many hours of conversation, and came up with 7 or 8 themes that we were going to study this year. And then the weekly goals come from a theme that we might be working on for, say, a month. We'd chop that up into weekly kinds of things where we would establish what needed to happen, like a report or a project or creating a bulletin board based around a theme. First thing in the morning, we, from our planning that we've done for the week, we'll put up a master schedule on the board, and we have a morning meeting where all of the children gather together, and someone will sort of describe what the major points of the day are, and the students plan what they're going to do at that time. So at any one time during the day, there might be students working on math, students working on projects, some might be writing, reading, or in the library doing research, and they would be determining which activities they would do based on the goals that they've set for themselves for the week.
Are there any theme groups that need to meet today? We didn't schedule everyone because it seemed like most groups pretty much figured that out yesterday, but Donna?
Is anybody in Northwest Indians on the raffle committee and fundraising committee? Then can we meet at 9 o'clock?
Does that work for Northwest Indians? It's turning into a busy day. Jackie?
It's barely ever up to the teachers. We pick the themes we want to do, and we just pick mostly everything. They just kind of guide us.
I think you need to figure out how you're going to divide up this task. You've got 3 maps here. One of them hasn't even been started. So.
Well, I think we did figure out how to divide up our tasks, it's just some of it didn't get done.
That's what you need to decide right now before you break. Who individually, who is going to take responsibility for which part of this project? And I'll be right here when you're ready to tell me.
How about tonight? Who's going to do color coding and who's going to work on it? Well, I can take them home, hopefully. I can, okay? How are we going to divide these up so each person?
I'll use my information tonight on this. I'm going to have the littlest to do, I'll take home. But still has stuff to do.
A student-directed curriculum is generated by the questions young people have about themselves and their world.
Is this world a dream or reality?
I have one that says, will planets keep on drifting away from each other? You know, just like the Big Bang, everything was like condensed, and all the planets will be drifting away from each other so far, so that one day everything will be dead because it's so cold. Will the environment ever get better? I know that's really cool. Will anyone ever find a cure for AIDS? Yeah, I think that's a good one. Will people ever get fed, or homeless people ever get homes?
All of the topics that we've studied this year came from, children wrote down questions that they had about themselves and questions that they had about the world. And then we spent some time categorizing those into finding questions that we had in common. So we never studied anything that was just something that John wanted to do, and everybody else said, oh, I don't want to do that. They were all the questions that we had in common. So we built our themes around those common questions. Now, at certain points during the year, we have a wide open time where kids can do a study on their own, which would be an independent kind of project. So the one child that wants to study whales can do that, or the one child that's really interested in astronomy can do something with astronomy. But not everyone would have to. So the themes that we put our energy into, for example, this Wild West, Old West topic that they've chosen for this last theme, came from a complete class consensus. Our meeting yesterday was 2.5 hours long to come and reach consensus around just this issue, based on conversations about 6 different topics that the kids had come up with themselves as possibilities for this theme. Earlier in the year, we chose a theme based around creation. Most of the questions that the children had in the fall were all based on the beginnings of things. How did everything begin? How did the world begin? How did I begin? How did people begin? How did man begin? How did civilizations develop? How did the earth, what is that Big Bang? All of those things, they wonder about all of those things. Those are very, very rich and very academic, traditional academic kinds of scientific phenomenon that's very appropriate for them to study. And so that was our first theme, was on the origins of everything. And they were in study groups, and we did all the origins of the universe and the earth. We did the entire conception of man and the development of a baby all the way up to birth. which was a perfect opportunity to bring in the health educator and take care of all of the sex education that has to happen anyway. But it was within the context of their theme on origins rather than a separate unit on human development. So it was wonderful. And those were their questions. They wrote questions. The questions were posted all over the board. Our webs that we've just finished today will be up and categorized next week, and those things are right there for kids to see every single day. What are the questions that we have about the things that we're studying?
I believe that it makes the content much more relevant when they have to apply it to, first of all, it's something that they have incorporated some of their own interests and their own questions about. So they're much more likely to have more interest in learning about it in the first place. And also, it's something that's going to stay with them. If it's something they're interested about, chances are that instead of just memorizing details for a test and then letting go of it, that it's something that they're going to remember.
It teaches the students to really question, to always ask, to always seek learning for themselves. And, you know, that's the whole base of Alpha, really.
In pursuing the questions that interest them, Alpha students engage in thematic interdisciplinary studies. Rather than working from textbooks within strictly defined subject areas, they participate in creative, in-depth projects.
Both my daughters really enjoyed going to school, just looking forward to what was going to happen. There's always something going on as far as an ongoing project that they may be involved with, either a project of their own or a group project or a class project. So there's always something happening on a continuing basis. There is a sense of continuity in terms of day-to-day activities. Many of them are theme-based, so you sort of get immersed in that theme even at home. Things tend to be centered around the themes that they're doing at the time.
We're writing down what we know so that we won't research what we already know, because that would be a waste. And then we're doing possible study areas. We're making brainstorm sheets, and then we're going to combine them. And then, if I might be interested in doing the Oregon Trail, and we'd go into a smaller group that's also interested, and we'd all research it.
Pictures, drawings. Yeah. Birch bark. They wrote on birch bark. Okay, another one going off that. On birch bark. Wait a minute. Maybe cactus leaves. Maybe a break.
For making sure that there are resources available. We scour the libraries, we make trips to Burlington, we take children to the university, we scout up guests and experts in whatever topic that we're studying and provide those resources and bring those things in here. But the direct teaching is limited. Because we're pursuing so many different aspects of a topic, it's usually a small group that might be exploring one particular part of a theme. So for example, those students that were working on birth and conception and birth, they spent a lot of time working with the health educator here. And so that was the person who helped do the direct teaching for that particular piece. And then those children taught what they learned to the rest of the class later at the end of our study.
You were really allowed and encouraged to excel in your area, either creatively or, I love to do research. Then I had some friends who were really into architecture. I don't know too many fifth graders. They designed the teacher's house over in Huntington as a project. And he used those blueprints from fifth and sixth graders. And so that sort of stuff, you can't get anywhere else. It's great.
A student-directed learning environment encourages multiple learning styles and provides opportunities for individual expression.
Well, nobody in Alpha feels like a dummy. Everybody can fit in if they want, because there are so many things that Alpha does well that you always find something that you're good at.
Just because Alpha works with whatever works for you. That's the whole style of Alpha, is whichever style of learning best suits you, that's how you can learn. It's totally open to you. So if I learn best by listening to music, I could do that. If I learn best by writing things down, I could do that. If I learn best by making a tape and listening to that every night, I could do that. It's totally free and open.
An essential part of the Alpha experience is its multi-age setting. Teachers and students alike value the close relationships that are nurtured in this collaborative learning community.
One of the advantages of this program is that we have the students over a 3-year period. So we really get to know the students on an individual basis. We have them all day, most of the day, and over several years. So I have a much thorough understanding of when they come in, of what their abilities are, have a sense of their background, hopefully get to know their families a little bit more, so have more experience with them in that sense, socially as well as academically. So by the end of their 3 years, and during the course of that 3 years, I can develop expectations as far as what I think they're capable of and help them identify what they need to work on, or how much they need to challenge themselves, and when they're setting goals, how realistic or challenging those goals are.
The multi-age setting is super because at that age, kids are at all different levels. I mean, you have 8th graders that might be socially on a 6th grade level, or people, and it allows those groupings. So what you had is, like, I always got along with older kids. So I had, on my street, I grew up with older kids, so when I went to there, naturally all my friends when I was in 5th grade were 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and there were kids that were vice versa. Maybe they were the oldest kid on the block or whatever. They always grew up with the younger kids, then they would sort of group with the younger kids, so it was neat that way.
I find sometimes that 6th graders even have 8th graders. If, say, like, an 8th grader is good at one subject and you're better, you usually can help them.
Alpha alumni have said that the multi-age environment was an especially valuable part of their education.
I mean, they cite that as one of the very major things, that they have learned to get along with people of many ages. That nowhere in their life now do they work with everyone who's 23 or 42 or 12.
Right.
And that it's all mixed, and that you have to be able to do that.
The students spend a significant amount of time in small groups learning cooperatively and helping each other meet their individual goals.
And when you get in a group with people who demand more of you and who want to work faster, you push yourself a lot more. And I know that the students who were in algebra and who were a little more advanced, they had to slow down and think about what they were doing. And that was great for them too. I know in talking to them, they'd said, well, I thought I understood it, but when I had to explain it to somebody and teach it to somebody, I realized that maybe I didn't know it as well as I thought I did. And then you teach it, and it really gets enforced, and you really know the skill after you've taught it to someone.
Right. What's that next?
Food groups, trip committee, theme, then there's others, and then this is the individual piece to theme, and then reading.
Okay, well what I did is I did a portfolio problem, and I did that and I handed it in.
Okay.
And then
what was the portfolio problem on?
It was on oranges.
Oranges, okay.
And we had to like calculate the area of oranges.
Write that in, please.
And then in my writing, I did the student council minutes and bylaws. And my learning summary, I finished it, and it's like a little model.
Okay.
And then the theme, obviously it's the Old West, and in my group it's settlers, and I got my clothes and I made a person, I made a description, and I started making my transportation chart and diagram, and we started our bulletin board, and we planned our trip activity, and I organized my theme word, and I did a research summary.
Okay.
And then I did French, algebra, student council, stage band, mixed chorus, softball, swimming. We had the musical brainstorm, and I watched some other films.
Okay. Very good. Proud of you, Jackie.
Okay, and this week I'm going to do another portfolio problem. And I haven't decided which one I'll do, but I'll pick that and I'll write it in my assessment. And I'll do 2 entries in my RBN journal. And I'm planning to read 200 pages in Travels with Charlie and Mavericks.
Okay. And Mavericks?
Well, they're different books, and so I'm gonna read like 200 pages, but I haven't decided which one I'll read it in.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna start
it. Say or.
Okay. I haven't decided which one I'll read in, because I don't know which one will be good. Okay, and then I'm gonna write. I need to write the student council minutes, and I'm gonna finish my research summary, and then the Old West. our group's going to practice our presentation. We're going to get ready for our trip activity. I'm going to finish making my character.
What's your trip activity?
We're doing games, settler games. Okay, and I'll finish my character and I'll present and make the bulletin board. And I'm going to type up my descriptions for my individual project. And food committee, we're going to meet with Mrs. Meunier and food shop and order food. Okay. And there's all my other stuff.
You're going to you have one bag. Okay. And in the bag,
okay, so what did you do?
Okay, for my
Student collaboration in Alpha extends to class-wide activities. For example, the final interdisciplinary unit of each year culminates in a theme-based week-long camping trip planned and organized by all the students.
Well, this was to choose like the curriculum for the rest of the year because we're going to go on a camping trip for and we're going to have like 5 weeks of study. So it's really important that it's something that everyone likes so it can get really enthusiastic about it. We all got together and we discussed like 6 different topics, and then we narrowed it down and we were like choosing it, and it was really hard because there's like everyone had to agree on the idea to make it go through. And so it was really hard to decide, but we finally got a consensus.
We looked at a map and we just picked out all the state parks that were like on this side of Vermont, like down to Rutland, and or maybe a little bit below that. And then we put a list and we looked in Brad's AAA guide to campgrounds, and we found out how much each one costs and how many campsites it had and everything like that. And then we lowered them down by the time and also just by what it had and how much it cost and stuff. Okay, Tuesday we went and we visited Lake Carmi, North Hero, and Grand Isle state parks. They're all state parks. And just a thing we noticed was that the rangers were really nice at all 3, which is nice. And today we're going to present. Lake Carmi, the campsites were wooded and they were pretty small. But they had smallish lean-tos, but it was really nice. It was pretty. And the campsites it was a mix between some dirt and some grass on the campsites. And the beach had a small open area where we could maybe put fit. It didn't have a pavilion, and so at the beach we could probably fit a tent like we did last year.
And since we didn't get to visit very many places, and one of them was underwater, basically, we wanted to present more than 2 options to the class, so we thought this one was nice, and it was pretty inexpensive. Okay. And it had grassy, open campsites, and they've got trees scattered around. It's got a rocky beach, and it's not very long. It's probably a short walk.
Okay, Grand Isle. There was choices between wooded campsites and grassy, open campsites in this field type thing. And there was pavilions in the same field that had the grassy campsite. And it had campsites that had lean-tos on them, and they were grassy, but they were kind of wooded, and they were pretty big.
Would that be more bugs? However, the good thing about wooded campgrounds, the bad thing is bugs, but the good thing is that it's shaded and you don't have to worry about sweating to death in your tents or anything like that. Like in DAR, that was a problem because we were right in an open place, and every time we went into a tent, unless we left all the windows open full time, which didn't leave much privacy, it was like being in a steam room.
I have a question.
Charlie?
Isn't Grand Isle the most popular one? So, the popular state park in Vermont, would there be a lot of people there at the time? Can we take a poll or something, I don't know, about how people feel?
Yeah. Who would be in favor of going to Grand Isle? Does anyone object to going to Grand Isle on the camping trip? Good. Okay, we're going to Grand Isle. I think we come to a consensus.
What's my grilled cheese curry with? All right, sorry, put the thing on, let it
Fine. No, just try out for fine.
Okay, we've left the day, the activities committee has left this day pretty free, only because we wanted to fill in things that we wanted to do once we got up here. And
at 1 o'clock, we need 6 people to do the wood project, continuation of the wood project. So can I have 6 volunteers now to do that at 1 o'clock, right after lunch?
We're just counting and we still get credit.
Okay, here's some for me.
Okay, so does you see the way Martha's right to that bush?
Yeah.
Well, Zach read it, so the green arrow is pointing north.
Yeah, but it looks like,
But, that's...
So we just have to follow that arrow, basically, right?
Yeah, follow that.
That's supposed to be his arrow.
So the whole school group needs to get together with your tape and a tape player to practice.
This kind of collaborative, student-directed program requires a non-traditional learning environment and thus involves a new role for the teacher.
I guess I see myself more as a facilitator of their learning than a teacher, that it's very rare that I will actually stand up in front of the class and deliver information to them. But what I'm doing is helping them manage their own learning, acting as a resource person or a guide when they, as a group or individually, identify an area that they want to explore, that I can help them find the materials they need or help them identify a person who is knowledgeable about that area, help them organize the information that they've gotten and figure out ways to present it effectively so that they can share what they've learned with others.
And sure, there's things that I have to do for them. There's things that they have to know. But most of those things are skills, processes that I have to help them learn how to do. And that Than and I work really hard on how to get the process of making a decision, the process of collaboration, what the skills are for writing a report or the business letter or a poem, those math things that they need to know, like the math that you saw today. What are those applications for the math that they're learning here? And that's pretty much our focus, is process, skills, and application of the knowledge that they gain, rather than discrete content pieces that they might have to memorize, that I had to memorize when I was in school, like states and capitals.
My teachers and I always had a real strong bond in Alpha. The teachers that I had over the long-term basis got to be not so much a teacher, but more of a friend and more of like somebody who I felt I could go to, I could really trust with any of my problems, anything I wanted to tell them. And that was really wonderful. It was great. Plus, once you get to know an adult that way and you admire and respect them that way, you are much more willing to listen to what they have to say.
Somehow kind of how they related to each other. The trade of metals.
All right, guys. Okay, finish up that thought, and we're going to change categories now, okay? So you can add some more stuff to what's already planned for this one. Here you go. All right, now they've already started. This is on moving west. Anything you want to add to the list of things we already know about that move to the west? Now, one of the problems that they had was they began a list of things, but they never defined what those were. So when you answer the question, what do you know about moving west, they wrote horses. It doesn't really tell us something that they knew. So, like, maybe put them in sentences. What do you already know about moving west? People had to fight the weather. They had to go over huge mountains, whatever.
All right, so
get a few things on here, and then let's start the webbing on what could we study about moving west.
They had to battle sickness, weather, and terrain.
Never heard of anything. Okay. What else do we know about Native Americans, or that we think we might want to find out about? So we want to find out about rain dances. Okay. What else might we want to find
ritual
out?
dances. It would be
like when they dance to the nature.
Okay, dances. Do you think, and celebrations, like, it seems like they had celebrations for all kinds of things.
I know, but it's just rain dances.
Okay, languages, writing we have. We have writing. How did they communicate?
When they'd have those.
Okay, so this, instead of languages, maybe communication.
It doesn't matter, just attach it. This is just brainstorming. It doesn't matter.
They kind of made their like own kind of contacting each other.
Yeah, they had. Like, how did they do that? Okay, so all right. So how did they communicate? One way we said was, why don't you put that on the thing that we know? We know they communicated with smoke signals.
Oh, okay. Is this stuff we want to find out?
Still put that on there because we don't really know what it meant, do we? And what about smoke signals? How about drums? Do you think they use drums like the African?
When they dance around the fire.
I think they use drumming.
They dance around the fire.
Yes, they had lots of dances, and that may have been part of rituals, and it may also have been part of communication, but just keep adding it on.
It takes a tremendous amount of teacher skill to be able to successfully do that kind of a program. I think that what gave this kind of learning a bad name often was versions of it in the 60s or 70s that were just kind of let the kid do their own thing. And this is far from that. This is really a skillful process of helping kids to figure out what they're interested in and giving them a format to follow through, having clear expectations for ways that kids will demonstrate their learning.
In Alpha, a lot of people say, well, it's too loose. There's not enough structure. To me, there is actually a lot of structure. It's hidden, but you have free reign over what you want to do, but then the teachers sit down with you and they go over exactly, they make sure that you're staying within your boundaries, that you're not stretching yourself too far, but that you're not working too slowly. So there really is a lot of one-on-one, checking in with the teacher, which makes sure that you stay up to your level.
One of Alpha's primary goals is to cultivate active learners who will become responsible and involved citizens.
We do a theme, an IDU, an interdisciplinary unit, and this one was I Can Make a Difference, and Andre and our topic was the homeless. Last night we went to the Burlington Emergency Shelter, and we volunteered there, and tonight we're here.
Well, you look like Buffy up there.
A lot of chores you see are the ones you get from checkout counters as you're leaving. You know what I mean? That you check where the candy is at the checkout counter. Doing stuff like this, if it exists in the world, it's going to show up harder in music, right? And that's what it's playing maple.
I learned that most of the trash that goes to the dump, could be recycled, stuff like that.
They could choose what they wanted to do, and they've focused on recycling. There's other students who are doing different environmental issues. We have some students studying the homeless, and they're going to homeless facilities. Students studying the elderly, health concerns, environmental concerns, social concerns. And they are constructing some type of sculpture, and some of this stuff is recycled material, some of it is not. And they're just showing what you can do with recycled material. It's one example of what you can do with recycled and non-recycled material. Instead of throwing it away, you can utilize it.
These alternative ways of learning, community involvement, teacher as facilitator, interdisciplinary units, a multi-age classroom, collaborative student planning, enable Alpha students to acquire more than just the factual content emphasized in conventional education. Students develop the skills to become reflective learners, able to assess their own needs and abilities.
We believe very strongly that it's important for students to be aware of what they're learning and how they go about learning, where they're successful and what their weaknesses are and the things that they need to give more attention to in their own work. So we encourage the kids to do a lot of writing and talking, both in conferences with the teacher, but also with their peers after they've completed a particular project, an individual project or a group project or a theme. We'll usually put aside a block of time for them to discuss with each other, with teachers, and actually write out their thoughts about what worked for them individually, what worked for their group.
Simple letter grades do not measure students' progress in developing these reflective abilities. Grades are not used in the Alpha program.
It's much harder to evaluate students on less tangible things like their interest level or their self-esteem or their skills. Skills in general are going to be much more difficult to assess than content. So it's not as easy as just giving them a test and finding out which pieces of knowledge they've acquired, because you're looking much more at the process of how they learn. So a lot of our assessment comes through their reflections on what they've learned, but also teachers' narratives that we have to write reflective pieces on how they have performed on a specific task or in a more general nature of how they work with others, how they're able to plan a project or carry out a plan that they've made or assess themselves, each of those different skills.
Assessment happens all the time. Children assess themselves every single week in terms of the work and the progress that they do. They meet with a teacher every week to talk about where they are, where they're going, how they know that they're getting what they need to get, and what their challenges might be. There is a regular assessment every 6 weeks. In fact, that's what's going home this afternoon. It would be an interim report that just sort of talks about whether or not kids are meeting expectations on a very quick sort of checklist way, where all teachers make comments on their skills and their academic achievement. At the end of every trimester, there is a more formal written report that goes home to parents that outlines the work that children have done over a 12-week period. In terms of a standard assessment, these children are responsible for taking the standardized tests that are offered every other year in this school, as is everyone in the Shelburne School District. So they do take those tests, and they perform very well. They perform equally as well or better in all areas as compared to the rest of the school population in Shelburne, and I always have.
Although the program's approach is non-traditional, Alpha graduates successfully handled the transition to a conventional high school program.
One of the things that students that are in the high school have often told us is that it is much easier for them to move from this more unstructured and self-determined kind of a program to a high school program. It's very easy for them to move to the high school and have someone say, if we're going to spend 40 minutes on mathematics now. They can slide into that very easily. And the other thing that happens in high school is when they have free time, they've also had some serious training and experience with what to do with it. They don't have the same kind of problems with meeting deadlines or what to do in the free period or what do you do when you go to the lunch or you have study hall. They sort of know how to plan that.
There were times during the program where we were concerned maybe, is she going to be ready, especially once she got to the 7th and 8th grade, ready to go into high school. What's going to happen? Is she really going to be ready for a content heavy, content-centered curriculum versus concepts? And everything really came together. In fact, when she hit high school, it just seemed like everything that she had been preparing for just seemed to come together. Everything she'd been doing, the projects, the time management, being able to look at things from a slightly different perspective.
And I found that I wasn't as far behind as parents and teachers thought I was going to be, because although some people did know more than me about biology or English in some technical senses, I was able to then just research myself and figure it out and take the time that was needed to work with the teacher and get up to the level of all the other students in the class. The want and the need to learn was still there, so I just went ahead and learned at a faster rate.
I felt prepared, confident in the fact that if I didn't have the background, I had the skills that I could learn it fast enough to catch up.
I've noticed that all the Alpha kids, at least this year, are on the honors roll all the time. So it's obviously they can adapt and they can do well and they haven't missed the content.
Alpha graduates are successful in high school and beyond because the program develops qualities that are essential for becoming lifelong learners.
They learn very quickly, and certainly by the end of the 8th grade, they're here for 3 years, how to articulate what it is they've learned, what their strengths are, what their challenges might be, and how they're going to set about meeting those. They're very, very well versed in knowing what they want to know and where they're going from here. They have a very clear sense of their own academic development.
They seem to ask a little bit more of the school and therefore are willing to give a little bit more of themselves as a sort of equal partners in their education, which of course is what we like, rather than us feeling like we are delivering the service and they're just taking it. These students largely seem to be more willing to accept some of the responsibility and give some of the energy toward their educational process. Yeah, thinking of the few students I know well who are seniors now or older who have come from the Alpha program, I think of them as more lifelong learners.
You learn in Alpha that learning is fun. School has always been fun for me, and I think that going through Alpha really helped that because I learned to make it fun.
The great thing about Alpha is that you do get older, you know, so the next year I felt more comfortable and I started to speak up more in the group discussions that we had. And so as you work your way up through the grades in Alpha, by the time I was in 8th grade, I had become one of the leaders of the group. I'd become an 8th grader who worked with the younger kids. And you really become very sure of yourself in group situations.
Because you have a tremendous variety, a tremendous diversity of kids in the program. And I think it tends to, make those students more accepting of people for what they are.
But when you're in Alpha, you learn more how to deal with like situations and stuff when you get into college and when you have a job. You're not going to always be working with people your age or people who you like. You're going to have to work with all different kinds of people, and you're going to have to make your own decisions and set your own goals. And so that's what we're kind of working on right now. That's what we're doing. So it's kind of preparing yourself better.
When we talk to the workforce, they're looking for kids who can plan and collaborate and problem solve and make decisions. And that's what we have believed has always been important. So I think if the business community and the community at large puts pressure on the schools, programs will have to demand that children have that. And until teachers can let go of that control, where they are the bearer of all knowledge and realize that they are merely the facilitator, the instrument for bringing that knowledge to children and having them discover and make meaning for themselves, I don't think we're going to solve those problems. I think the traditional education is no longer okay, and it's not enough. Kids need much more than that to make it in the world.
I myself have personally taught similar models for younger kids, and I thoroughly believe that the basic model works for all learners. It's a model about how people learn, and then it's just varied according to developmental levels. But basically it's just a model that's saying we come into the world as learners, and in a more ideal world we would all stay motivated, interested learners, so school helps to support that. I guess my message to doubters, parents and community members and so on, is that it really works. This is a system that really produces kids who potentially, and of course it doesn't always, it depends on how it's implemented, but potentially can produce kids who have the best of both worlds, who can, do well in terms of the kinds of basic skills that we all want our kids to succeed in, and yet who can have all these other wonderful qualities of an educated person, like compassion and curiosity and self-confidence and the ability to do well in a democracy.
It's a